If any of you and your grandpas are into action films, pretty sure you're all familiar with James Bond 007, classic action-adventure espionage film series. Surprisingly, the series is still going on pretty strong with a total of 25 films within the past 60 years. Now, it may not sound like a lot compared to the MCU now these days, where with the overabundance of Disney Plus series, but having a Bond film released every few years since the 60s, that's an accomplishment of itself. And yes, it's officially been 10 years since the 50th anniversary of the very first Bond film, Dr. No, so we should celebrate. Although we already had a Bond film that came out last year, and it was Daniel Craig's last movie. So, okay, alright. Oh, but it is the 10th anniversary of Skyfall, which is easily my favorite of all the Daniel Craig films. And the release of 007 Legends, which was the last Bond game to ever be released. What the hell? I might as well replay it again. I don't really remember anything about this game other than the fact that I bought this when it first came out, and that was it. Since they were celebrating 50 years of Bond, Activision took the opportunity to tackle multiple Bond films within a single video game. One iconic film from each actor who played as the famous 007 agent. Who knows, it might be better than I remember. Why do I have this sense of dread with the title screen?
What are my orders?
Eliminate Patrice. He must not get away.
Surprisingly, we start off with the introduction of Skyfall, and oh my god! What the hell happened to the graphics? So, instead of proceeding to a fabulous title sequence from Adele, the entire campaign comprises of flashbacks to other Bond films while Daniel Craig is drowning in water. I mean, they didn't really need to make an explanation for why you play as Daniel Craig for the entirety of the game and just treat it as an anthology series, like, you know, the majority of the Bond films. Speaking of which, if you thought playing as Daniel Craig in Goldeneye Reloaded was already weird enough, oh boy, buckle up boys and girls, because this is gonna be a doozy. So I randomly get thrown into a big mess of an airfield from a Sean Connery classic, Goldfinger. And I'll give the developers this: never in my entire life would I have expected to see these classic films go as far back in the 60s be turned into more Call of Duty clones. Especially since this first level does not follow the film at all. It's just a mindless onslaught of enemies throwing themselves out in front of me. And I'm not a big fan of pressing a triangle button all the time just to cycle between 3 weapons. However, that's not what all the game has to offer.
When your enemies are preoccupied or unaware of your presence, you can pass them by using stealth techniques.
When the enemies are preoccupied...
The white marker indicates that the enemy is becoming aware of your presence. A yellow marker indicates the enemy is becoming suspicious. When your enemies are preoccupied or unaware of your presence, you can pass them by using stealth techniques.
I know the enemies are
Remain out of
preoccupied!
sight by using cover or shadow. Use a silenced weapon when engaging the enemy to maintain. Take longer for an enemy to identify you when you're in shadow. Engage your enemies in direct combat. Loud gunfire and explosions will alert an enemy will become suspicious if when eliminating or subduing an enemy. Try to do it in a location where the body won't be noticed.
Whew! Alright, that was awfully a lot more in depth than I thought it was going to be. Although, I do have a fair share of experience with the Metal Gear franchise, so I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing.
Hey, who goes
Alright, let's try this again. I can obviously sneak up to this dude. Oh, come on! Okay, clearly 007 isn't the greatest spy in the world. At least Goldfinger hasn't noticed the rapid gunfire and explosions from earlier. So things get weirder. They're able to get the likeness of all the Bond villains and girls throughout the game, but none of the original Bond actors outside of Daniel Craig. At least for Goldeneye Reloaded, nobody represent the original actor's likeness, especially since trying to re-release the original N64 Goldeneye to any other platform was a pain in everyone's ass. I'm just assuming here, but I'm pretty sure this shows how bizarre licensing can be for the 007 franchise.
Miss Galore, Mr. Goldfinger has left for the evening. Who is this?
Oh, this is...
Whoa, whoa, what the hell is this? So is this supposed to be similar to something like Punch-Out? But instead of memorizing their movement, they're just quick time events of where to punch? They just stand there like a punching bag. It's not just for bosses. They happen all the damn time. With like random henchmen. It's really monotonous and pointless if anything. There's no challenge to these sequences that just proves to be nothing but a waste of my time. And I'd rather move on with the mindless shooting. I take my word back. Oh my god. The more I play this, the more I realize how sloppy the gameplay is. 1 second, it looks like a buttery smooth 60 FPS game. The next, I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And the game still looks terrible. At least with Goldeneye Reloaded, that was a pretty decent looking game on the PS3. And that was originally made for the Wii, for crying out loud. This can't even run on modern platforms?
Well done, James.
That's Goldeneye, I guess. I mean, we all know the rest. Goldfinger gets sucked out of a plane like a cartoon character, but will Bond survive the crash?
I don't know what to say.
Say yes.
What about my father? What about Blofeld?
It's over.
Oh. That's a dramatic change of setting. Well, I guess we go straight into On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Interesting enough, though, this is the only James Bond film to be played by George Lazenby. But you're still Daniel Craig, so the majority wouldn't have known that beforehand. I do like Snow and Mountains. Skiing level was alright. Choosing to use a thermal scope in a snow level was not the best idea I initially thought. And it's over. Huh. You don't really go in depth as much as I would like to for each of these films. It's just roughly an hour of gameplay and off to the next film with zero context if you've never watched it before. Especially when this film ends with the Bond girl Tracy dying in Daniel Craig's arm. Damn. So much for saving the damsel in distress, only to immediately jump to Timothy Dalton's License to Kill, by also showing Felix almost dying in Daniel Craig's arm. Now, he's a US agent who also helped out Bond towards the end of Goldeneye, portrayed by a different actor who doesn't represent either films. Of course, when the missions start, M says,
And remember, Bond, no matter what your personal feelings, this is about terrorism, not revenge.
well, hold on. Am I having revenge for the original Tracy in the Lazenby film, or revenge for the modern recasting of Felix in the Dalton's film? You know, I've had it up to here when it comes to continuity at this point, especially when I have to put up with this crap. Might just be me, but all of the enemies in this level are bullet sponges, man. I go through an entire magazine just trying to shoot down a single dude without a shotgun. Since this is the part of the game where I start to die a few times, you have this excruciatingly long loading screen. Like, come on! But yeah, there's a brief driving segment for the last level. Oh, I didn't think I was gonna say that just now. Alright, Die Another Day. Pierce Brosnan film. Clearly, Goldeneye was out of the equation. Worst case scenario, at least we already got one, twice, so sure, let's do the worst Bronson film of the bunch. You do have Iceland going for it.
Bond? James Bond?
You must be Jacintia Jones.
My friends call me James.
Alright, so I guess we can't bring back Halle Berry's likeness for this film of all Bond girls, but we could totally bring in Toby Stephens and Rick Yoon likeness, like all the other Bond films. Again, the decisions on which original actors they want to reuse or not in this game is so bizarre to me. At least we have a little more dedicated stealth sequence.
Who's that?
Yeah, I can blame myself for this one. Alright, another driving sequence. Claymore Punch Out where that came from. This was fine. I mean, it was done and over with like all the others. Surprisingly, we jump back in time again by playing through a Roger Moore film, Moonraker. First off, that is not Los Chili's as our Bond girl. And I'm pretty sure this set the groundwork on future Call of Duty space levels. Ironically, this is probably the longest level out of all the films I've played through. Blasting a bunch of lasers towards the end was kinda neat, and the last part where I have to destroy the mechanical arms from deploying neurotoxin bombs, all while getting shot at by waves of enemies in zero gravity, was a pain in the ass. But once again, Bond wins.
James, the space station is starting to tear itself apart. Quickly, James, we're running out of time.
That's it. We do all the classic Bond films, but not a Daniel Craig film, ironically. Actually, I forgot. There is a side note in the game's manual that you could download the Skyfall DLC on the PSN store after the film's release. The Skyfall levels weren't included because this game came out a month before Skyfall was released theatrically. And if that was going to be the case, then couldn't you just wait another month? I mean, it's a free DLC, so let's go download it real quick. Oh, will you look at that? It's delisted. Why am I not surprised when it comes to licensed video games? Luckily, I've installed it before, back when it first launched, so instead I have to go through this massive download list so I can be able to reinstall it. Now, get ready for this. The first level was a massive difficulty spike with an on-rails bike chase sequence. Second level was an 11-minute long boss fight. Holy shit. This is the definition of a bullet sponge. I'm going through an entire magazine worth of headshots, and when you do run out of ammo, you gotta find a briefcase that carries unlimited ammo refill. And you're only using a sidearm. There's no other weapons to use. It took me a while to figure out how to cheese my way through this level, but once I finally beat it,
Tracy is dead.
Well done, 007. But there's still one piece of unfinished business. About your injuries. You should know that I ordered that agent to shoot. Even though she didn't have a clear shot. I'm sorry.
Don't say it. You did what you had to. We all do what we have to survive.
Very well, 007. Mr. Tanner will be calling you with your next assignment. Good luck, Bond.
Bond here.
that's it. Now, as lame as it is to use a sidearm as your only weapon for this level, at least it was a massive change of pace from doing a hand combat sequence like 5 seconds ago. Damn it! James Bond will return. God, I hope so. That was a lot more disappointing than I remember. You had such a great concept to honor the legacy of the James Bond franchise while also paying tribute to one of the most culturally significant first-person shooters to be released on home consoles. If the same developers who made Goldeneye Reloaded as their interpretation of a tribute to the original N64 game, then why can't they do the same for 007? Hell, you should have just thrown the majority of Goldeneye Reloaded into 007 as its own chapter. I know it's gonna sound weird, but this could have been the LEGO Star Wars Skywalker saga of James Bond for all I care. Have each Bond film be a full-blown game rather than just an hour-long collage of random sequences. Yes, it's a Call of Duty clone, and obviously it wasn't the first time for 007, but 007 Legends? This is by far the most careless 007 game I've ever played, on top of the fact of how poor the visuals and performance are due to either low budget or rushed development. It's uninspiring to say the least. It makes you wonder why we never got a 007 game since. That is, until IO Interactive releases the new 007 game. I have no clue what to expect out of it, but I would be completely okay if it just ends up being a Hitman clone.